Hi, my name's Ken Rusk. I guess you could accuse me of being a blue-collar entrepreneur. I live in Toledo, Ohio, in the United States. And I'm just happy to be on the show with Dominic today.
Ken, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on. What does a blue-collar entrepreneur look like?
I've always believed that if you could gain on what you wanted your life to look like, there's a lot of ways to get there. And so for me, it was always about, can I create something where I can work with my hands, I can be outside, I can fix, repair, build, improve, maintain, whatever. It was kind of a love of labor for me. And I couldn't see myself necessarily being stuck in an office on the 15th floor in some cubicle somewhere. I wanted to have control. I wanted to have control over my input and therefore my output and the quality of that output. I wanted to have control of my day, my schedule, my time, and ultimately my financial gain, which if you do all that, you can then build on the picture that you see that you want your life to look like. And so I think a blue collar entrepreneur is someone that possesses probably 9 or 10 characteristics, which we all have, but they're just driven by where they want to go in their life. And that's kind of how it is.
And so where did that take you? What's your outdoor entrepreneurial journey looked like?
Well, quickly when I was 15, I wanted to get my first used car. I wanted to be able to take my girlfriend out for pizza and, go bowling with my buddies. So you needed money for that. And my high school shared a fence with an industrial park, and there was lots of businesses in there. And every day after school, we'd cut through a hole in that fence, which was well worn over the years. And we'd go down to the corner to the carryout and just hang out and see what was going to happen with us, with our life, So I remember these businesses being very hustle bustle businesses. And there was a couple of them that had really high energy, and they had grown up toys, like we were talking about off camera. They had backhoes and dump trucks and, people milling around. So I decided to go and ask what they did. And they said, we dig ditches. That's what we do here. And I said, well, I'm wholly qualified for that. So I started digging ditches for them in the summertime. And then in the wintertime after school, I'd go over there and work in the office in the evenings. So I kind of learned the front and the back of the business, if you will. So when it came time for me to either go to college or get into the business world, they approached me and said, look, we're opening up new offices around the Midwest. And we'd like you to help us do that. So at 18, I cobbled together a suit and I went to Chicago and Columbus and Cincinnati and Pittsburgh, and we opened up these companies from scratch, literally from scratch. And then I would build it to the point where it was operating and then move on to the next one. So I got tired of living out of a suitcase after a while, lots of travel when you're younger. And when I was 23, I moved to Toledo, Ohio, which is where I am today. I gathered up 6 people and started my own company. And I think now we have 225 people some 38 years later. So it's been a heck of a ride.
Fantastic. And there's a big transition when you get to about 10, 12 people when you start a business. And sometimes people sort of get up to 20 and they're losing money and they go back to 10. And you've got to sort of push through. Have you got any wise tips from your time doing that? And how did it go for you?
Well, that's an absolutely great question, because that is true. You can kind of work your way into too much expense and not get the result out of it. So what I did a long time ago is I gathered the people around me that I thought were the most effective. And these are people that, they tended to show being a self-starter, and they had some control and they had some management kind of tendencies, and, their attendance was amazing. And they wanted things for themselves, which was really the most important thing for me. So I gathered them up around me and I said, hey, our current level of income for our company is this number. And I'm going to give you all this little piece of paper and a pencil, and I want you to write down how far you think we can take this company in the next year or two, revenue-wise. And just so you know, if we do that, I'm going to share some of that with you. And so they all wrote down these numbers and folded their paper in half and slid them back to me. And I'm embarrassed to say that mine was the lowest number. So be careful what you wish for, because you might be your own ceiling in your business. Now, I still had a pretty aggressive number, but I mean, it was not nearly what theirs was. And I started looking at these numbers and I said, do we all agree on this? And they were like, yeah, we think we can do this. And well, how would you do that? Well, then they started giving me ideas and things. And what I was building, either knowingly or unknowingly, Dominic, is I was building intrapreneurs. I was supposedly the entrepreneur, but that was the guy that I had to buy all the dump trucks and take all the risk and build the buildings and, go into debt and do all those other things. But these folks were entrepreneurs and they were saying to themselves, I can get what I want for myself with and through Ken's company. I can run my division as though it's my own. I can feel like I own my little piece of this place. And therefore, I'm going to benefit financially from its results. And so the more you can surround yourself with entrepreneurial thinking, the more your company will take off way further than you can take it yourself. And that's a lesson that I learned a long time ago and one that I talk a lot about today.
So, I mean, other than the risk, do you think entrepreneurs and intrapreneurs are the same thing? Are they different?
Well, they do this. So they all start with the same 9 characteristics. And I talk a lot about this in Blue Collar Cash. So things like perseverance and persistence and resilience and, initiative and faith and courage and vision and generosity. Those things I think we all have, but they're kind of asleep inside of us until we have a reason for them to come out. That's why you can see almost any industry, whether it's a social media influencer or it's someone who creates a new product or invents something new, they go from being this one person to this other person. And what really happens is there's a reason for them to take on this risk. There's rewards in it for them, and those rewards they see very clearly. So anyone can be an intrapreneur or an entrepreneur. I think we all can, once we've designed what the reward looks like, or once we've designed what the why looks like, what our perfect nirvana for living looks like. And that kind of brings out this tiger in all of us that can go create these results. And so, yeah, I believe anybody can do it.
In the book and certainly on your website, you've got some stories of people you've helped. And I guess that finding their purpose is your part of your sort of genius, if you like, that, you've got to start with purpose because it always gets hard and difficult. And unless you know why you're doing it, then you can get stuck.
Well, I've stood in front of now 200 and some people, and I just did it a few weeks ago. And I said, listen, I can't get what I want for myself, my family, or my company until all of you get what you want first. And the reason that is, Dominic, is because you're talking about companies are linear creatures, okay? There's input, okay? Then there's work, and then there's product, and then there's revenue, and then hopefully at the end there's profit and that kind of thing. And as an owner, you're always at the end of that line. So you better make sure that the people that are in front of you are winning for themselves first and for the company second. And this is why I say, this is the time for you to be as selfish as possible. And I don't mean selfish at the detriment of somebody else. I mean focused on self, focus on you, because I want you to win for you first and for the company second. Because if you're winning and I have enough people around me that are winning for themselves, I'm naturally going to win in the end. I mean, it's just going to happen. So I take a lot of pride and a lot of joy into seeing other people create lives for themselves that they've seen, that they've drawn out, that they've visualized, and now are coming to fruition. And that to me is the real secret to the whole thing.
Talk me through this. So maybe I've got this the wrong way around, but new employee starts in your business. There's some process for you to say to them, okay, work out what your life is. And then how does that, once you've got there, how does that drive their day-to-day behavior?
So another great question. I'll give you an example. So I have these huge black glass boards that are mounted in the hallway of our company, and they're right between the bathrooms. So everybody sees them at least once or twice a day. And on these boards, I have people literally write their goals, but they have to write them in a very crystal clear, actionable way. And I want to focus on the word actionable because, you can't just go to the board and say, I want to be taller. Okay. You can't just say, someday I want to do this. No, it has to be clearly defined. So if somebody says, maybe they want to start simple, they want to pay off a nagging credit card bill. Okay. So it's $2,500. Okay. So can you save, I think it's $48 a week? Okay. Well, yeah, I can do that. Okay. So in 52 weeks, you're going to have that paid off. So they write their name, they write the date, they write the $48 a week out of their paycheck, they write the end date that it's going to be paid off, and then they sign it. And that doesn't go into play until the payroll person is actually removing that $48 every single Friday. So these have to be specific, they have to be clear, they have to be wanted, they have to be something you're chasing, and then they have to be actionable. And the fact that I put them on the board, or they write them on the board, means that they're shared amongst everybody else. So everybody gets to see that. That to me is how someone takes a concept or an idea of, wow, this guy Ken's really interested in my success. That's kind of cool. But then, a lot of times it just dies right there unless you put something into action. So to answer your question, if you're going to tell me you have a goal, then I'm going to turn right around at you and say, okay, how bad do you want this thing? And if that's the case, let's go get it into action right now. Because if not, I don't want to hear it. I'm too focused on people winning for themselves to have somebody just hoping and wishing and dreaming, but there's no specificity to it.
And moaning and whinging.
Yeah.
Right. in fact, my colleague Andre, he does that. He unnerves people. We'll be in a session with clients, and somebody will be, I guess they've got something that they're talking about. It's a negative thing, probably, and he just says, "And so, what's the action?" And then leaves it hanging, and they just go, "I don't know what you mean." He goes, "Well, you've just complained about something, so either you got to do something about it, or you got to stop complaining. Like, which one is it?" Yeah. Because, your negativity is not helping anybody else in the room, and it's not helping you either. So what's the action? And then they very quickly either have to come up with some actions, or they stop, complaining when he's around.
Yeah, I mean, this is not a recording studio. Okay, we're not here to play your eerie music. We're here to make something happen together. So yeah, exactly.
Do people try and one up each other in their goals at all, or?
I don't think so. I think if anything, they're proud of the fact that they've done multiple ones. Like the one that I just talked to you about, it was a gal that, believe it or not, she actually, I'm a huge fan of today, not someday. Someday never comes, right? So she actually walked down the hallway when I was working with somebody else on writing their goal on the board, and she goes, "Wow, that's really cool that you do that. Someday I'm going to put a goal up there." And the people were like, "You did not just say that," So I told her, I said, "You're right. Monday you will put a goal up there," and she did. And since then, it was paying off the credit card. Then she bought a new car. Then she's bought her first house. She got married, has 2 kids. So, these things just keep showing up because now she's a lot more driven. And it's kind of like training. You train on something small, and then you get into these larger, more concurrent goals. And it's really cool to watch. I'll tell you that much.
You're helping people get clarity and then focus. So it's just that being specific.
Yeah, it's interesting because literally you could take a poster board, okay, and you could draw specifically what you want your life to look like with color and clarity. And a lot of times I'll have people use crayons because the last time they held a crayon in their hand, they were probably 5 years old, and they had no stress, they had no job, they had no, preconceived notions of the world. So their creative point was probably at their highest. And so I'll say, well, start out with something small. Would you draw a cat or a dog, or what kind, what color, what would you name it? And then let's draw your vacation, your favorite vacation. What would that look like? Let's draw maybe your favorite sport or hobby that you like, or your craft. Let's draw your car. Like if you could drive any car within reason. I mean, you're not going to drive a Ferrari in Northwest Ohio in the wintertime, but if you could drive any car you wanted, what would it be? And then let's talk about your house and what does that look like? Because what they're doing, Dominic, is they're creating a brochure for their life, and they don't even know it. I mean, And the reason I have them do this is because many times we live at the behest of what we think others want us to do. We live at what society thinks that we're supposed to do. So in my mind,
what you think your mother wants you to do.
Yeah, right. In my mind, if I know my favorite color, my favorite car, my favorite house, my favorite sport, my favorite hobby, my favorite spiritual moment, my favorite vacation, if I know those things, why am I not in putting that out into the universe, into that law of attraction universe? Because the more you see it, the more you stare at it, the more you find a way to bring it into your life almost subconsciously. And so that's, to me, getting them started into what their perfect nirvana could look like. And again, we're not all going to draw mansions and 15 cars and mega yachts and a rap star career. I mean, we're not all going to get that. But we all know what would make us go, wow, man, if I could live like that, that would be really cool. And so that's what I try to support, is them getting to a place where they can see, okay, this is the puzzle that is my life. And there's a million pieces here. But what Ken's doing is forcing me to look at the box, because you can't build a puzzle without the box. I mean, you could. I suppose if you were in prison and you had 20 years to do it, you'd figure it out eventually. But you can't build a puzzle without the box. Why? Because the box is a vision. The box is the picture. The box is the end. It's the goal. It's the conclusion. So if I have that picture first, then I can arrange all these pieces and eventually get there.
To get people collaborating with each other to help each other get to their vision?
I know that I've had people high-fiving each other when they hit a goal. I know that we make a big deal out of it when somebody does. I know that I've heard people asking priorities of one another. Should I go for this or should I go for that? So those are all the kinds of things that I really enjoy. And it's nice to see them getting advice from their peers, especially because, it's like teaching my daughter to golf. I could tell her all the right things to do, right? And it'd be like, Dad,
but yet think of anything that sounds more complicated.
Yeah. She comes home from her golf teacher and she says, man, he told me to do this. And I'm like, awesome. It was the same thing I told her to do, but I'm Dad. So yeah, it's kind of neat to see them learn and work with each other in that fashion.
Do you teach any sort of financial skills to the team at all?
We have something here that's called the 401k Millionaire Club, and I don't know why high schools don't teach this, parents don't teach this. I don't know why. I mean, it drives me crazy because it's a simple math. Okay, you have 6 possible doubles in your life, and there's 7 years apiece. The old 7-year double your money thing.
Yeah.
If you miss the first one by waiting, then you've missed the most important double on the backside, which is the last one. Okay, because now you've only got 5 doubles, and the 6th double is always the most impactful. I mean, that's where your money goes from 500,000 to $1 million. Okay, on that last double. So we teach about getting people started early because, I mean, there's a formula that says if I'm matching 25% as a company, then for every dollar you try to save, you're only going to get 75 cents. But for every dollar you try to save, you're going to get $1.25 because I'm giving you the quarter and it's tax free. So there's almost a 50% increase right there every Friday. But the power of money is such that if you start when you're 21, you can almost stop saving when you're 31 and still kill it at the end of at your retirement. Not that you would want to stop, but you could, because you've taken advantage of all those early doubles. And so we teach a lot of that. We have a lot of 401k millionaires here. And it's cool because they get their statements every quarter and they go, wow, look how much money I'm going to have when I'm done, and it's just a real powerful motivator for them to stick with it.
Often that's a taboo that people don't want to talk about. So you've done them a service by, that people's statements and in people's face. And there's a lot of peer pressure there. You're telling people it's a good idea, and then they're surrounded by other people who've already done it, who are already further down the track. That must be very powerful.
Well, imagine when you're 21 years old and you're sitting at the bar having a beer with your buddies and you're like, yeah, my retirement's covered. I'm done. I mean, I don't need to think about it anymore. Most people, it's the 20s and then, oh my God, we need to start saving. It's the 30s and then, oh my God, is it too late in our 40s? Now we really have to save. And it's just this huge stressful ball of, whatever that they carry around on their shoulders. Why not get rid of that this is an example. If someone comes into my organization, and I've told them this, whether they work here or wherever they work, if someone offers you, let's say 40 or 50,000 a year, let's say 50,000, I want you to look right back at them and say, thank you for paying me 47,000. Well, no, I said I'd pay you 50. I know, but the first three, I never had it. I never saw it. I never held it in my hand. I can't spend it. I won't miss it. Put it into that 401k and don't even tell me about it, because I'm going to get real used to living off 47,000, where otherwise I would have gotten used to living off 50. And then you would have come to me a year later and say, hey, it's time to start savings. And now I'm like, oh man, where am I going to find this money to save? But if you start off that way, you adjust your living to the 47. It's a beautiful thing. And as life grows, so does your money.
And so when somebody says to you, should I go to college? What's your college advice?
I'm not an anti-college guy. If you're going to come at me with a knife to, fix my shoulder so I can get back on the golf course, I'm going to want you to know everything there is to know about that knife before you come at me with it, obviously. But having said that, if you have a specific job waiting for you at the end of college, then yeah, do it. I'm a lawyer. I'm going to law school. When I get out, I'm going to have an offer. I'm going to go join a law firm. I'm a doctor. I'm going to go to med school. When I get out, I'm going to be a pediatrician. Architect, teacher, specific jobs. But if you're just going because your parents or society says you have to go and you have no idea why you're going, and you might get good at beer pong, but that's about all you get out of college, there's a much better way to live. And it's called getting into these trades, which are paying a fortune right now. So college is only I mean, in the United States, there's 165 million people considered full employment. 77 million of those people to this day do something with their hands. So that's almost half. So why would you as a society try to force 100% of your students into college when you're shooting yourself in the foot? Because now you're going to be waiting 2 years for an electrical outlet. It's going to cost you $2,000, right? So we got to keep a balanced economy. We got to keep supply and demand where it is. And all I can tell you is, as a tradesperson, the supply is so low and the demand is so high that you can write your own ticket in the United States right now. So take advantage of the laws of supply and demand, because where supply is low and demand is high, that's where the money goes, and use that to your advantage. 66% of college degrees go unused forever. And yet we're paying all this money for them and we never use them. So does that make sense? I mean, if that was a corporation, it would go bankrupt. So it's really interesting how the flow of parents' mindsets are, because I'll say, look, if your college costs you $50,000 a year, all in with everything, car, gas, fuel, food, books, everything, that's $200,000 that you have to borrow or go find. And that's $200,000 basically on the debt side or the negative side of your asset base. If you go into a construction job right now, you're going to make $50,000 easy. 50 times 4 is $200,000 on the plus side. That's a $400,000 swing by the time you're 23. So all I'm saying is at least think about that before you just shove your kid into school, not knowing what he or she's ever going to do with it.
And at one level you think, okay, well, graduates come out, they'll get a job. But we were chatting before we were recording, and you saying you've got a new book out, which is sort of thinking about this differently, which is, you don't have to raise your own money to get a start, as you didn't. You were working for somebody else until you learned enough to build up enough capital to start your own business. What's your new book about?
Well, the new book is the first one was called Blue Collar Cash. It's from the end user's perspective, someone that's starting out. Maybe they're 15 to 25 years old, maybe 30, and they're trying to figure out what they want their life to look like. And they have to go find a place that they can create that wealth for themselves. They have to find a place that is supportive of that. So right now, because hiring is so challenging and because culture is something that is so important, people as bosses are saying, you mean I have to start caring about my employees? I have to start thinking about their welfare, and I have to think about what their environment is like? And the answer is yes, because of the competition that they face. So this book is going to be from the boss's perspective, because if I want to attract that entrepreneurial thinker, if I want to attract that person that's going to help me drive my company to higher highs than I've ever seen, then I'm going to need to create the culture to do that. And it starts with me. So this one's called Cool Boss, how to find one, how to be one, or change the one you have. And it really comes at it from three perspectives, because you can either look for the culture that you're looking for, and it'll teach you how to create it, or the person that wants to find that culture, what they should be looking for when they walk in the door for an interview, or that person that says, you know what, I kind of like working here. It's kind of a cool place, but the boss has just got his head buried or her head buried in the sand all the time, and he or she's working so hard and killing themselves. Maybe I should help them realize how to create this culture and make it a better place. So it comes at it from three different perspectives that way.
Oh, very good. Describe some elements of your business culture that you think are, we talked about the 401k millionaire stuff and the goals wall next to the toilets so that people can't miss them. What else about your culture? Because I suspect you don't struggle to attract new employees.
Yeah, and we get a lot of referrals, which is great. So it's about a lot of things. I mean, it's about energy, color, conversation, socialization around the building where we're not all stuck in our little offices. Okay, that's one thing. It's about music and getting the environment such that people are happy in their daily routines walking around the building. It's about recognition of everything, anniversaries and birthdays and goal setting and goal hitting and all those things. We recognize a lot around here. We recognize and publicize a lot of the wins around here. It's about knowing the why of everybody that's here. And here's a secret. So you hire an individual, and if you take an individual in a typical day, you've got, let's just say a normal day is 8 hours of working, 8 hours of sleeping, and 8 hours of something else. Well, don't you want to know what that something else is? Okay, because if not, your interview sounds like this. The pay is, $20 an hour. You need a uniform, and here's your benefits, and here's your time off, and here's your, this is how you call in sick, and this is your, your compensation plan, and this is your health insurance, and it's just a boring, mundane interview like everybody else. Our interviews are different because I want to know what's in your head. I want to know what the other 8 hours is. Are you a golfer? Are you a jogger? Are you a crafter? Are you a parent? What are you into? What do you worry about? What do you get excited about? I want to hire the whole person, not just 1/3 of them. So there's a whole lot of conversation that revolves around people's lives, and I'd like to bring their home life in as positive a way as possible into the company so that we know about the whole person. I mean, bring your dog in. I want to see your dog. I want to meet your dog. Bring your daughter in. I want to meet her. Do those kinds of things where they feel like it's more of a familiar relationship, and hire the whole person, not just that 1/3 that performs the task for you.
Are you still digging ditches? Is that mainly what your 200 and odd people do, or you do all sort of groundworks? And
one of the things that I've told them was, if we can create a management staff such that I can go out and look for other opportunities too, then I would require less compensation from this place, which allows you to have more. So between branching out in other opportunities and also growing the company, there's ways that they can control their own income, which I really like. So we build houses in Missouri. We have a chemical company that does construction chemicals. We do office buildings here in Toledo. We build and lease those out, and then we have the ditch digging company, which is the biggest part of all that. But it still allows us to do lots of other things, and yeah, it's all kind of a line extension, if you will. Like where you have one cereal, but there's 12 flavors.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a line extension of the core of our business. But yeah, it works pretty good that way.
And do you have kids who work in your business?
I don't. No, my daughter decided she wanted to be an architect, and yes, she's using her degree, which is great. My wife is an interior designer, and Nicole really liked that. So she's kind of a half architect planner, space planner, and half interior designer, which is cool because they get to work together, and it's fun to watch that mother-daughter relationship blossom that way.
Do you plan to retire, or do you plan to keep your boots on till the end?
Well, that's a great question. So we have a sign on the wall here that says "Work hard, play hard," and it's a neon sign, and it's lit up 24 hours a day. I took my company recently through an ESOP program, which is an employee stock ownership plan. And so that to me was a way that I could like semi-retire without retiring. Although writing this other book and doing we're building another building for ourselves and all that, I'm far from semi-retiring. I just worry about this particular place a little bit less than I used to, because they're owners now, and they're partnering with me to drive the company forth. So will I semi-retire, or will I worry a little less? Probably, but will I just sit at home with a blanket on my lap and rock in a chair? No, I won't do that.
In a few words, what drives you every day?
My family and my pastimes. I mean, first my family, and second my pastimes.
What's your genius?
I think my genius is getting people to understand that they really are in control of their own lives, not me. I might have 2% to do with their success just because I've created a vehicle for them to thrive on, but they really do it all. And sometimes they give me too much credit for that.
What unpopular opinion do you hold?
Well, I believe that we should all be self-reliant and responsible people and not be parasites on society. I think if we taught financial independence in high school, we'd have a lot less problems with Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid and all those things that people were sold that they could rely on, that they won't rely on going forward because they'll run out of money. But yeah, I think people who just glam on society and live in a parasitic way are just, I'm not fans of that.
What's the most significant risk you've taken?
Wow. Well, it's never fun to move away from your family. I live 120 miles from my entire family, and I can't just go to lunch with my mom when I want to, or see my brothers for a beer in the afternoon. So yeah, I would say moving away and knowing that, I had 50 grand in about 8 weeks to make it, or, come home with my tail between my legs. That's probably my most significant risk.
Okay. How do you measure success in life?
Success in life is that picture that I said before. Do I feel like I am in control of the puzzle being built?
Are you where you thought you'd be? Or do you keep, on this journey, do you keep rubbing bits of the box lid out and changing the picture?
Well, yeah, because once you start to get confident in doing things like this, you tend to change the puzzle picture a little bit, but you only make it bigger, or more intense. So yeah, I've done both of those. I've added. I'm further along than I thought I would be, but I'm enjoying it. But the biggest thing is, I give back like crazy. I've been giving back. I've been doing charity work for 25 years, and it's just so much fun to involve the staff here in helping the community be better. And so it's a funny thing about success, because if you give back throughout your life, you don't do it for this reason, Dominic, but for some reason, the more you give, the more you just seem to receive. I don't know if it's a karma thing or what, but and I don't do it for that reason, but it just seems to happen that way. So I'm very blessed and I'm very grateful in that.
If you think about your eulogy, what do you want to be remembered for?
I would want to be remembered first as a great father and a great husband and a great friend, but also someone that believed in everybody. Like there's something good in everybody, and I believe it's in there, and we just have to get it out.
Fab. What's the most recent thing you've learned, or the most recent skill you've acquired?
Well, I think you're the 250th podcast I've done in the last 18 months. So I've gotten pretty good at that. But I enjoy them. I enjoy maybe helping to shorten the learning curve for that entrepreneur that's coming up behind me. I think that's the thing.
What's the worst business advice you've ever received?
You can do it all. You should be in control of everything. You should micromanage everything, and you should know everything about every detail, because those people that live that way are 50 years old. They have high blood pressure. They have diabetes. They have all these other heart problems and whatever. And so, people that try to tell me that, you got to know the absolute intricate details of everything all the time. Nah, that's not for me.
And Ken, other than Blue Collar Cash and your upcoming new book, Cool Boss, what any other books you think people should pick up, or maybe you found inspirational?
Well, I mean, I like books like Traction. I like books like The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, which is a perennial bestseller. It still is. I can't believe it. I mean, years and years later. There's a lot. I mean, a lot of the Spencer Johnson stuff, which is small books, but they're really potent, like Who Moved My Cheese and those types of books, where they're business books that give you just quick insights that you can plug in today. But I think the biggest thing for me is sometimes when you write a book, Dominic, you see people with a book with a bunch of shelves, and they're loaded with books, and they've read them all. And I'll pick one out and I'll say, what did that one teach you? And how do you use it in your daily life? And they're like, I don't remember, but it was a good book, and I read it. And I'm like, okay, well, so what I did is I actually took my book and turned it into a mini course. It's 8 sessions long. It's only 45 minutes a session, and you can do it online. And it will literally force you to get to the book as a guide and then change your life this afternoon. I mean, like by 2:00 today, you will be changing the way you think about your life. Because so many times I just didn't want my book to be sitting on a shelf and be like, oh yeah, it was good, I read it. I wanted people to go, man, that changed the way I think about myself, and therefore now my future is better off because of it. And I've had some pretty good stories related to that. So I'm grateful that we did it that way. It's on my website at kenrusk.com. You can find it. It's literally $179. It's not one of those $3,000 life-changing courses that you see out there. But you get a free book, and I donate most of the money to my local causes anyway. So if somebody wants to read the book and then really change their life this afternoon, maybe they go check that out.
Ken, that's brilliant. It's been an absolutely pleasure having you on today.
Thanks, Dominic. I appreciate it.